if I have to introduce the gentleman next to me, but I will. It's Mr. Dick Eastman. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much.
This is kind of fun. I think we're switching things up on you. You are usually the one doing the interviewing.
I've been known to do a few of those. But,
you do?
I'm much more nervous this time.
We're in Mesa, Arizona. Our first time here. What do you think of the turnout here in Mesa?
It's about what I expected.
Yeah?
I've been watching Holly and her crew for a few years, and I like their business model. And when I heard they were coming down to the greater Phoenix area, I said, you know, that's going to click. That should turn out to be a good show. And turned out I was right. That's one of my predictions that worked. And they've had, I don't know what the attendance is, but it's 1,000 or over 1,000,
yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
And it's been kind of a hubbub. Not so much the second day. The first day was really amazing. The second day settled down a little bit, but it's just been fun. A lot of people, most of whom, from what I can tell, have not been to a significant genealogy conference before.
Yes.
And there's some exceptions to that. But the rank and file that come in here are very enthusiastic and looking for something new.
And you're finding that because you're over at the footnote booth, right?
Yeah, I've been hanging out and helping them out with their booth, and it's kind of interesting. We're right dead center, which is kind of an interesting location.
That's a good place.
And it's worked out well.
Wonderful. You know, because I'm interested, well, I'm kind of on the tech side of things, accessing podcasts. Definitely
I know you
are.
You do much more of that than I do. Yeah.
No, I mean, you're the tech guru, but I think that what I'm finding is that this audience who's come, they are pretty savvy. I haven't had to explain what a podcast is very often. How are you finding the responses to using sites like Footnote?
Well, they're all web savvy.
Yeah.
And the sites vary, obviously. Footnote is not a big name, so there's been a lot of explanation of what is it. Mm-hmm. So, but you're right. There's no explanation of here's how you use a web browser. We're well beyond that with this crowd. Like everything in genealogy, it tends to attract an older audience, and it's been kind of fun. When I started doing genealogy, the words technology and the phrase senior citizen didn't match. They didn't work very well. Today, the seniors are some of the more techies and available. They tend to have the time, and they like to experiment. And there's no... I used to go around at these conferences, and I would give introductory talks on how to use technology, how to log online, if I can say that. There's no requirement for that anymore. Those talks have gone away. We just don't have a need for them anymore.
But you were like one of the first genealogical presences online. You kind of helped, pull people in.
There were quite a few before me.
With the newsletter and just
the newsletter was
the way of
pretty
getting
early.
Information.
Yeah, I've been doing that for 12 years, and that's been I've told people if I had ever created a business plan of what the newsletter would become, this would not have been it. This was not a planned event. It just kind of mushroomed, and genealogy interest has mushroomed, and I've just ridden on the back of that. Mushroom. I guess that's not a good phrase, but you know where I'm going.
Ridden the wave, right?
Yeah, the wave. That's it. I've ridden on the wave. Much better. Thank you.
Okay. Well, what were you kind of thinking it might be when you first started? Well, you were on AOL, right?
No, I started off on CompuServe.
CompuServe.
And actually, I've been doing something very similar on CompuServe. CompuServe is a classic story of the internet. They were really the biggest online service. They were king of the hill, and they said we are the top, and we're going to stay this way forever. Well, you know what happens with that attitude on the internet. We all know what happened. They were the deer staring in the headlights on the side of the information superhighway, and these 18-wheelers went past them. There's probably a former CompuServe executive watching this right now, who's probably fuming, but that's okay. So I was doing this on CompuServe. I loved that service. They were great. But I began to realize I was losing the audience. It was getting smaller and smaller every year. And email was a big distribution method. I still love email. As much as I'm on the World Wide Web, I still believe the most popular activity online is email.
Yeah.
And while my newsletter is available on the web also, I still consider it to be an email newsletter. That's my distribution method. So I basically took what I had been doing, and I just canned it in email because that was a method to get to more people.
Right.
So it started off 1996. One night I sent out a newsletter to 100 people who didn't know it was coming. Now, keep in mind, this is before
was that
the word...
first spam?
No. Probably. This was before the word spam had been... Well, at that time it meant a canned meat product.
Yes.
Spam was not a phrase used with email in 1996. and it was very well received. I shudder to think if I did the same thing today. I just arbitrarily sent something out to 100 people.
My guess is they would accept it from you.
Yeah, there'd probably be a lynch crowd out in front of my house. So, but it was an innocent time, and it worked.
And I want to talk a little bit about, because you have a history here with Family History Expos and with Holly Hansen, the president. Tell us a little bit, where does that relationship start? How long have you known her?
I'm not sure I remember. I've met her about 10 years ago, I guess.
Yeah.
And she said, I'm putting on a conference or an expo, whatever she called it, in St. George, Utah. And I said, where? And I'm sorry, I'm from the East Coast. I had no clue where St. George. I had to go home and look it up. I didn't know where St. George was. And I said, why would anybody put on an expo there? But I went to it. She invited me to speak, and I didn't know how to say no. So I went to it. I figured there'd probably be about 50, 75 people show up. And I was floored. I walked in, and they had a mob.
Wow.
And it was a very enthusiastic group and very different than the conferences I had been going to before. They were more beginners. Holly's always been very effective at bringing in newcomers. They were very enthusiastic. The weather was great. I came out of New England, and I think that was in February, so it was a good time to escape the cold.
Yes.
And I liked it so much, I went back again the next year, and then the year after that I went back again, and it's just worked out. Now, her business has grown. She's expanding to other venues, and she's got one going on here in the Phoenix area, and it's not quite that cold back home yet, but Phoenix is a place I've spent a lot of time.
Beautiful here this weekend.
Why not? Yeah. And the airfares are cheap.
Right.
I got a round trip ticket, very cheap, to come here, so here I am, and it's worked out well.
I do like the fact that the expos cater to all levels of experience, that even a novice could come here, make the rounds in the exhibit hall, and start tapping into classes and get on the roll.
Yeah, all the major conferences will offer classes for beginners, but I think this one here, the Family History Expos, have just been a little more effective at that. They go out of their way to attract the beginners. Some of the other conferences will offer a few beginners classes. This one here has got I don't know if it's 50%, but it's a fairly good percentage, and yet they have other things for the advanced people as well.
What's on the horizon for Dick Eastman?
I never know. Literally, the newsletter, if you do read it, it varies from week to week.
Yeah.
There is no master plan. And the articles that I write or other people write, I've now got two authors helping out.
I was going to ask you about that.
Okay, let's talk about that. A year ago, it was my product, and I'm helped a great deal by a lady, Pam, who edits all of it and ends up rewriting many of my words, and that's a good thing in this case. But it was essentially a solo effort with one person helping a lot. Almost a year ago, we added George Morgan, and that was an experiment. George writes one article every week, and George's a prolific author. He's been around for years. So that was an experiment to see how it worked, and it turned out it worked out very well. I was very pleased. So 3 months ago, we added Lloyd Boxstruck on it. Now, Lloyd is another prolific author with a very different set of expertise. Lloyd is he's writing primarily what I call the traditional genealogy. I tend to write the techie stuff. George is in between. Lloyd writes about research. He's very strong in research in Southern ancestry, Texas particularly. He's very, very strong in some of the societies, the lineage societies.
Right.
Very traditional topics, and I think we're getting a balance out of this. A little early to tell yet, but I'm kind of enthusiastic about it.
It's exciting. You're bringing a whole mix of skill sets.
If it grows another, 500,000 subscribers, maybe we'll add another author.
And tell us the website, Dick.
Let's see. Can we see the shirt?
EOGN.
www. That's abbreviation. It stands for Eastman's Online Genealogy Newsletter. I'll tell you a thing. If I ever started a newsletter again, I would never put my name on it, and I would never have it 4 words long. It's a mouthful. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on this show. I appreciate it.
And thanks for the invitation. It's kind of fun.
It is kind of fun. We'll have you in the seat more often.
All right.